Ask Reddit, what's the scariest fact you know in your profession that no one else outside of it knows? I used to work in banking, and it was eye-opening to see how many people were victims of fraud, how little recourse there is to get the money back, and how little the police can do for you too. My GF recently got a job at a credit union, and I hear stories every day now of someone trying to scrounge up money to put a bankrupt account back in good standing. As a librarian, you'd be horrified how many books we get returned and have to throw out because they're absolutely covered in bed bugs. We put a block on accounts and notify patrons, but I'm specifically told not to mention this problem to the public whatsoever by management. Climbing into an unventilated manhole can kill you in seconds, and you wouldn't even know anything was seriously wrong. You think that's air you're breathing now? Manholes can fill with gases that are heavier than breathable air. You think are breathing normally, but instead you fall unconscious and suffocate from lack of oxygen. I work in homelessness. There's lots of scary stuff about this work that people are probably aware of, or are intentionally ignorant of. But one of the most scary/shocking things I learned in this work was pretty early on in it. There are lots and lots of reasons that people experiencing homelessness may be dirty or not shower frequently, but I have had it reported to me multiple times that a female client is refusing to shower/practice hygiene because being dirty/unclean/stinky prevents men from raping her when she's sleeping outside. Both very scary and very sad. I was horrified by how many people featured on my 600 Pounds Life tried to make themselves fat when they children because they were being SA'd and thought it would make their abuser lose interest. I work in a shelter. Some of our guests are from middle and upper class backgrounds. Bad choices, bad health, bad treatment, and bad luck can happen to all of us, sometimes very quickly. As far as I can tell, the only thing all homeless people have in common is trauma and loss. Kids are incredibly behind where they should be in terms of education levels, and they just keep getting pushed through. As in, I have a graduating high school senior that doesn't know what 5x4 is and can't pronounce the word illuminate. This is by far the scariest one to me, and there are a lot of teachers in this thread saying it. In NYC, 80% of students entering high school were reading 2 or more grade levels below their actual grade level in 2019. This is a terrifying statistic because NYC has a good and well-funded school system, so it's worse a lot of other places. This is also scary because these are 2019 numbers, so numbers pre-COVID. Literally, children cannot read. The amount of worms in fish from the ocean is astonishing. I'll never forget the very awkward conversation I had as a chef with a guest in our dining room. She ordered our current fresh fish, but only cooked to about medium. I told the server we could only offer this fish well done. The guest was unhappy about that and asked to speak with me. I tried to beat around the bush a little at first, but finally just had to very bluntly but politely explain that this specific fish, Munchung sickle pomfret, is very prone to parasites and worms. They are very visible when we butcher the fish, and while perfectly safe and delicious fully cooked, is not a good option for sashimi or less than well done. She changed her order. Supply coordinator for a hospital here. Our supplies are ridiculously cheap. That for you were charged $1,000 and we paid 79 cents for it. We get diapers for about $1 and per case. I worked application support for a hospital EMR for a bit and was able to view the charge master. The software we used showed the hospital's cost, patient's cost, and a markup percentage. I never saw anything with a lower markup percentage than 1,000%. You know how you worry about getting your frozen and refrigerated groceries home and put away before they spoil? Overnight stockers don't. Working in a kitchen, there's a reason many restaurants refuse deliveries between 12 to 1. If everyone is working, no one is available to accept the order and put the perishables away. Sometimes frozen will not be so frozen by the time it gets into the freezer or walk in. I'm a nurse. I'd say it's probably the fact that people know when they're going to die. They will straight up tell you, "Today is my last day. Thank you for being kind." And you reassure them because their vitals are good, they are taking to treatment well, nothing happening that would indicate a drastic decline. Then, inevitably, you will hear a flatline on the machine and run in, and sure enough, that patient has passed away. If it hadn't happened so many times, I would chalk it up to a few people who just didn't have the will to live anymore. But I've seen it enough, I know that's not it. Really creepy when you think about it too hard. My mom knew the week she was dying. Kept saying, "I'm just tired of it, you know." She died 3 days later and told me to forgive her, an hour before she went unconscious. This was 3 months ago and it's still on my mind. It's very weird how people recognize the end. Lifeguard. I cannot explain to you how quiet and how fast drowning is. Even people with some idea tend to think, "Okay, so barely any noise." No, there's nothing. You might get some splashing right at the beginning if someone's just panicking, but I've seen an adult man get into trouble with absolutely no sound. Even if someone can get their mouth out of the water, they're so locked in on breathing and not dying that they won't yell. Their arms and legs are under the water, and they're struggling so hard that nothing can make it to the surface to splash. You won't hear it. Please, please, please do not take your eyes off your kids in water, leave in the bath for even a second. That's all it takes. In my career, I've seen drowning, but I have been fortunate enough to not see drown. Would love for it to stay that way. I have a story about this. One time a few years ago, I was at a Six Flags park with a friend. We were at the wave pool and I swam off to the deep end to get hit by the waves for a bit. For some reason my gaze locked onto this kid who was in the deep end. He immediately stood out to me because his face looked completely panicked and frozen, and he was too deep where his feet couldn't touch. He was facing the shallower end, like he wanted to go there but couldn't move. His body was completely rigid and his face was tilted up, but waves were just washing over him repeatedly. I took in all of this information in about a split second, and then spent the next second sort of second-guessing myself. I glanced around real quick, realized nobody seemed to be seeing what I was seeing, and then just swam up behind the kid and pushed him to the shallower area until I made sure his feet were touching the floor. What's funny is that as soon as he could stand and was coughing/moving on his own, I had this immense flood of anxiety about touching some random kid, and I swam away before he could even turn around and see me lol. But anyways, I guess the moral of the story here is that drowning doesn't always look like the movies. That entire time the kid made no sound and didn't splash around. It's sheer luck I happened to be in just the right place at just the right time, because nobody seemed to be paying attention to him. I work with government documents and read a lot of internal emails. 2 things I found out. Many of these people can't write or spell worth a damn. Borderline unreadable sometimes. One person was complaining about an increase in vandalism. The bar for "too crazy to work for a regulatory agency" is a lot higher than you think. One person explained that their psychic powers showed them that all their coworkers were involved in some pretty extreme crimes. I used to work in child protection. The people most likely to harm your child or you are people you already know, most likely family members. You can bar the door against bad men lurking in dark alleys, but when you do, remember who you're locking in with you. I used to live with a lady that worked in child services. She was one of the toughest cookies around, but some nights she would get home, grab a bottle of wine, walk out to the back deck and just 1,000-yard stare until the wine was gone and she smoked a packet of cigarettes. I wouldn't even ask how work had been those days because you could tell she'd been wrecked by something. I couldn't do it. People are so freaking disgusting to children. What's your industry's secret? Feel free to share in the comments below. Please consider subscribing and liking for more daily videos.